Despite assurances from both Michał Kuczmierowski and Paweł Szoppa that they are at the prosecutor's disposal, an arrest warrant has been issued for the latter and the former is in British custody. This is to investigate whether the case is of a political nature before the extradition hearing. What is it really like? Today I am checking. I don't want to preempt the facts, but I think it's a rare situation where a provisional arrest order has been issued and implemented by the British authorities, because the person has been detained. Please note that this is a fairly standard procedure used in hundreds of cases in relation to people who are fleeing from Polish justice. A fairly automatic procedure. The British court will check whether the case of the former head of the government Strategic Reserves Agency is politically motivated. Although Michał Kuczmierowski has been detained on the basis of a European arrest warrant, his surrender is not automatic. The court has postponed the extradition hearing until 17th of February. Until then, Kuczmierowski remains in custody. This long period of waiting for the subject to have this application from the Polish side raises my doubts. The United Kingdom, when it left the European Union, in its separate extradition agreement, specifically in Article 82, indicated when the surrender of a detainee can be refused. Why does a British court or an English court need such a long period? Because the arrest warrant itself must specify the alleged act of the person prosecuted, its legal qualifications, what kind of crime it is, whether it is organised crime or smuggling of people, or whether it is corruption. I also think that the British court is reserving this time to watch how the situation in Poland is developing, and by considering the various scenes from which the rule of law is evidently being violated today, may have additional doubts and therefore may defer such justification in order to punish when there are factual rather than political grounds. British courts are sensitive to political nuance in extradition cases. The defence is expected to take advantage of the fact that Michał Kuczmierowski's guilt has been publicly prejudged by politicians and the Attorney General himself before it had even come to court. An unfair trial is also feared by those accused of the same thing, that is, participation in an organised criminal group, exceeding powers and full failure to fill his duties in order to obtain material benefits, financial gain, in the case of Paweł Szoppa. As he states, a decision was made upholding the prosecution's complaint against the decision not to arrest me. It was taken during a court session in which my defence lawyers were prevented from participating. In this way, I was deprived of my right to a defence, and this called into question the chances of a fair and just trial. Not wishing to participate in the media spectacle, through my defence lawyers, I applied for a letter of protection. This will enable me to appear before the court and give detailed testimony. I hope that the application will be granted. It is difficult to consider that this decision of the district court to apply pre-trial detention against Mr. Paweł Szoppa should not be regarded as an unlawful decision. We will certainly lodge a complaint in this case. Evidently, the materials are fragmented and in a biased way were communicated to the media, which already indicates what the alleged act of the person prosecuted, its legal qualification, what kind of crime it is, whether it is organised crime or smuggling of people, or whether it is corruption. And most absurd of all is the fact that Paweł Szoppa is a businessman who is to be charged with official misconduct, that is, overstepping his powers and failing to fulfil his duties. A media verdict had already been handed down before the case went to court. Two contracts were signed today for 15 radar systems for the control of the Drava airfield area and for additional sets of Fly AYE reconnaissance drones manufactured by the Polish WB Group, known for producing, among other things, Warmate combat drones. Negotiations for these contracts were started by the previous government. We asked the Deputy Minister Paweł Bejda, who is responsible in the Ministry of Defence for the technical modernisation of the Polish army, about the fate of the most important contracts started by the previous government, including the production in Poland and technology transfer of Korean K2 tanks. We want to accelerate. The first of these 180 tanks will, of course, come from Korea. This is the first executive agreement. We also want to sign it for 180 units, but we want to include this Polonization in the second executive agreement. The current authorities argue that there are no problems with the continuation of contracts concluded when Mariusz Błaszczak was head of the Ministry of Defence. American HIMARS rocket launchers and South Korean equipment, K2 tanks, K9 howitzers, and Polonized Chunmoo rocket launchers. We are ready. Production of the K9 in Korea is going on all the time. The system is proven. We know that Polish users, soldiers, speak in superlatives. The problem is that the line is not yet here in Poland and will take many months to get it up and running, all with the growing threat from Russia. Fortunately, most of the Army's modernization programs have already started.
Poland is already aware of the threats, and better than most European countries, Poland is addressing these threats. both with modernization of the military.
The largest American weapon companies are present in Kielce, including Lockheed Martin, the manufacturer of the state-of-the-art American F-35 Hussarge multi-role aircraft.
It's an amazing platform to integration capabilities between air-to-air, but also from the air, bringing sensor capability down into the ground forces.
In Kielce, it was possible to see the products of the largest Polish companies in the arms industry, including the most well-known of the private companies producing for the army, WBG, the manufacturer of the drones used by the Polish and Ukrainian armed forces, the reconnaissance Fly-Eye, and the Strike Warmate drones. Every element we cover, this is our own, Polish national technology. We are not dependent on anyone. As a WB group, our philosophy from the beginning is to create proprietary solutions over which we have full control. This is technological sovereignty. With the threat from Putin's Russia, the government should continue the arms contract still started by its predecessors. The question is whether political ambition will not overshadow Poland's interests.
Radosław Jankiewicz, Republika.
This is scheduled to be the longest and most challenging trip of Francis's 11-year papacy. He has suffered health issues over the past few years and now uses a wheelchair. The Vatican said no special precautions were being taken for this trip, but as usual, Francis was travelling with a doctor and 2 nurses. Speaking with CBS Evening News anchor and managing editor Nora O'Donnell in May, Francis said the idea of stepping down had never occurred to him, and he described his health as fine, despite a recent bout with the flu and 2 rounds of intestinal surgery. The Pope has also had only 1 full lung since undergoing surgery as a young man in Argentina, leaving him susceptible to respiratory illness. In his first speech in Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim country, Francis condemned religious extremism, saying it distorted religion by using deception and violence. There are times when faith can be manipulated to foment divisions and increase hatred, the Pope told Indonesian politicians and religious leaders gathered at the presidential palace in Jakarta. He urged them to fight religious intolerance through dialogue. In this way, he said, prejudices can be eliminated, and a climate of mutual respect and trust can grow. Religious freedom is protected by the Indonesian constitution, and the country prides itself on its diversity and tolerance, but Islamic fundamentalism has made inroads, and there have been incidents of religious violence in recent years. In Jakarta Cathedral, Pope Francis was welcomed by an enthusiastic crowd of hundreds, including small children playing the angklung, a traditional bamboo instrument, as they waited Francis' arrival. Indonesian youth became emotional as they engaged in a dialogue with Pope Francis on his visit to Jakarta Cathedral's youth centre. Anna Nur Avalia, a Muslim, was in tears as she remarked on how her experience was an incredible transformation. Today isn't just an experience for me, but an incredible transformation. This is the first time in my life I visited, entered, and became part of the cathedral. And it is part of a cathedral most holy for Catholics. Miraculously, in front of me also stands a mosque within which I pray every day. This is a symbol of tolerance where differences should be faced and bridged. I have felt cornered and distanced by a certain group of people without reason. In these moments, I feel perhaps out there are a lot more with the same experience. Differences could create future conflict and often end with destruction. When we want to bring the fire of unity to these people, we instead see religious conflicts arise and ultimately the burning of places of prayer. You're courageous. Life must be lived in differences. If everything were the same, if all of us were the same, this would be boring. These differences could also lead to hostility and wars, but it could also bring us joy. It's a matter of choice. I am different from this and that. This country is different from this and that. What do? Do I engage in dialogue or do I engage in war? Pay attention to this. Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim majority nation, has about 280 million inhabitants, only 3% of whom are Catholic. Russia has been pounding Ukraine with hundreds of missiles and drones for the past 10 days, in what some Russian military bloggers call Moscow's response to a recent incursion by Ukrainian forces into its territory that is continuing. Polytechnic University student Mykola Horbel, age 20, said that living in Ukraine means going to the bomb shelter and back, adding that seeking shelter during air raid alerts was crucial to protect one's life. I've said it before, the war has become part of our lives, and as horrifying as it may sound, we've become used to these strikes in a way. I'd say that life is going to the bomb shelter and back. In the case of an air raid alert, you must leave everything behind. You can buy material things at any later moment, but your life is what counts the most. It's the highest value we have. Every victim is a loss for our Ukrainian family. According to psychotherapist Anastasia Taranenko, as long as the war was ongoing, nobody in Ukraine was safe. Has it become more safe? As long as the war is going on, nobody is safe. We may forget about the continuing war at times, and we may believe that it will all be good somehow. We may believe in the illusion that we're in the West, far from the front. We're close to Poland, nothing will happen here. But no, we see what is going on. Nobody is safe. If we stay united, Russia won't succeed. They want to disorient us and scare us so much that we will start losing hope. But that's not how it will be, because we're Ukrainians. The mayor of Lviv, which is close to the border with NATO member Poland, said one man, Jarosław Basilewicz, lost his wife and 3 young daughters when their home was struck this morning.